Welcome to Ancient Wisdom. My name is Socrates, and tonight I am going to speak of a question that once divided all of Athens. Who truly possesses wisdom? Many in my city believe the answer lay with a group called the Sophists, men who sold knowledge as if it were fine cloth, measured not by truth but by price. Before we begin, let your breath slow. Let the day fall quietly behind you. The words I share are not meant to instruct but to awaken something gentle within, a memory that wisdom is not in the tongue but in the soul. I once walked among those who claimed to teach virtue for coin. They spoke beautifully, yet their beauty served victory, not truth. They promised power, success, and cleverness to any who could pay. But I discovered that wisdom cannot be bought, because it is not a possession, it is a way of living. Tonight I will tell you who the Sophists were, what they taught, and why their brilliance led them away from understanding. And I will tell you how I came to challenge them, not with anger but with questions so simple that even the proudest mind could not escape them. So rest now. Listen quietly. We begin where every search for truth begins, with the courage to doubt what everyone else believes. Before I began to question, Athens was alive with voices. Proud, polished, and full of certainty, men filled the agora like waves of sound, trading opinions as though they were gold. In every corner, someone was teaching how to speak, not how to think. It was an age of clever words, bright, dazzling, and empty. The Sophists were its masters. They traveled from city to city, dressed in fine robes, followed by admirers who sought to become powerful through speech. They promised success in court, triumph in politics, and the admiration of crowds. They said, "Learn from us and you will never be defeated." And so the youth of Athens, full of ambition and pride, gathered around them as moths around a flame. I remember standing among them, silent, watching the faces of the listeners. They were entranced. Each word from the Sophists seemed to lift them higher, but it was not the soul rising, only the ego swelling. It was like watching men drink salt water. The more they consumed, the thirstier they became. These teachers spoke of virtue, but their virtue was measured in applause. They spoke of truth, but their truth was whatever pleased the crowd. They taught how to make the weaker argument appear stronger, and how to win even when wrong. To them, justice was not sacred, only useful. Persuasion was their god, and victory their altar. I often thought to myself, if wisdom is a light, then Athens has mistaken lightning for the sun, for their words shone brightly for a moment, yet left the air darker when they were gone. They filled the ears of men but not their hearts. In those days, I walked quietly through the marketplace, listening to all, questioning none. I wished to understand what they meant when they spoke of knowledge. Was it the art of sound, or the discovery of what is real? Was it merely the ability to win, or the discipline to be true? As I listened, I began to see a pattern, that the more certain a man sounded, the less he truly knew. The Sophists feared silence, for in silence their charm dissolved. They feared the simple question, for it revealed that beneath their elaborate phrases lay nothing solid. And so I learned first not to speak, but to watch, to study how words could both heal and wound, how they could free or enslave the mind. It was then I began to sense that the greatest danger to truth is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowing. That illusion had become the soul of Athens, and the Sophists, its sculptors. But truth, like the morning, cannot be kept hidden by shadows forever. Soon questions would begin to rise, quiet, gentle, and unstoppable. The Sophists called themselves lovers of wisdom, yet their love had a price. They were wanderers, men of quick minds and silver tongues, who journeyed from one city to another teaching the art of persuasion. They claimed to make the weak strong, the uncertain confident, the silent eloquent, and for a handful of coins, they promised to make any man appear wise. Their names were known across Greece: Protagoras of Abdera, Gorgias of Leontini, Hippias of Elis, and many more. Each carried a different melody, yet the same rhythm, that truth is not found but made, shaped by speech and human need. They said that there is no fixed right or wrong, only what men agree to call so. And so, if one could speak well enough, even injustice might wear the mask of virtue. I listened to them often that I found their skill remarkable, yet their spirit troubled me. They spoke not to illuminate, but to impress. They sought not to heal confusion, but to decorate it. Their words were like polished stones, shining on the outside, hollow within. When I asked one of them what virtue was, he gave me a list of names: courage, temperance, justice, wisdom. But when I asked what made them virtue, his speech grew tangled. When I asked how one might live rightly, he told me to adapt to the moment. And when I asked, if you teach men to speak rightly without knowing what is right, do you not make falsehood powerful? He smiled and said, falsehood is only that which fails to convince. At that moment, I understood their blindness. They had made the tongue their ruler and the soul their servant. They sought to master argument, not themselves, and so they wandered through words as a man lost in mirrors, seeing reflection after reflection, but never his own face. Athens loved them. Young men crowded their halls, hungry to win debates, to rise in courts and councils. They believed that to speak well was to be good. They measured truth by applause and wisdom by wealth. Yet the more they learned to sound wise, the less they cared to be wise. I was called foolish for questioning them, for saying that wisdom begins not in speech but in silence. But I could not envy them that a mind that seeks power will never rest, but a mind that seeks truth already possesses peace. So I watched quietly as they turned the marketplace into a theater and the word truth into a costume. And I thought to myself, if I am to awaken this city, I must begin not with teaching, but with unteaching, for only when false wisdom falls away can the soul remember what it already knows. That was the beginning of my path, the slow, patient unraveling of their glittering web. And what I would soon discover is that the most dangerous lie is not the one told to others, but the one a man tells himself. The Sophists believed that truth was not a thing to be found, but a tool to be shaped. They said that reality bends to language, that whatever one can convince another to believe becomes real enough. To them, words were not bridges to truth, they were weapons of influence, and the art of persuasion was the highest form of power. Protagoras once declared, "Man is the measure of all things, of what is that it is, and of what is not that it is not." Many applauded him. To them, it was liberation, freedom from the weight of divine law or moral duty, that if every man is the measure, then no one need bow to any truth higher than himself. Each opinion becomes sacred, each desire justified. But I saw danger in this idea, for when every man becomes the measure, there remains no standard but appetite. Then the tyrant is as right as the just man, the flatterer as noble as the philosopher. And when truth bends to convenience, justice soon follows it into the dust. I asked one of them once, if you claim that truth is relative, then is that statement also relative? He paused, smiled uneasily, and said, "You twist my meaning." But I had not twisted it. I had only held it still long enough for him to see its shape, that if truth is whatever pleases us, then the word truth itself loses meaning, that it becomes a shadow chasing another shadow. The Sophists delighted in argument, yet they feared reflection. They taught that persuasion was the mark of intelligence, not understanding. They believed that to win a debate was to prove superiority, yet in truth, victory in words often hides defeat in thought. They would ask, "What is truth but what men agree upon?" And I would answer, "Then tell me, if all men agreed that the stars were stones, would they fall from the sky?" For agreement does not create reality, it only exposes our comfort with illusion. In persuasion lies a subtle corruption, the belief that appearance is enough. When words no longer serve reality, they begin to serve ambition. And soon men forget how to listen to silence, where truth speaks without the need of applause. I learned that persuasion, when divorced from virtue, is merely a polished form of deceit that feeds the ego while starving the soul, that replaces understanding with performance, humility with pride. And so the Sophists, masters of persuasion, became slaves of their own brilliance. Their tongues were sharp, but their hearts dull. Their minds full, but their spirits hollow. I did not hate them. How could I? They were as I might have been, had I chosen to please rather than to question. They sought certainty and approval, while I sought peace in doubt. They spoke loudly to others, while I whispered to myself. And it was there, in the quiet between their speeches, that I began to see a different kind of power. The power not to persuade others, but to free oneself from illusion. The Sophists spoke endlessly of virtue, yet they treated it as a costume, something to be worn when convenient and removed when it weighed them down. They did not ask what was good, but what was useful. To them, ethics was not the harmony of the soul, but the strategy of success. A man was virtuous if he appeared so, powerful if he convinced others of his rightness. They believed goodness was a tool, a means to gain influence, win favor, and gather followers. To act justly mattered less than to seem just. And so Athens began to love the mask more than the face beneath it. We applauded eloquence even when it served lies. We called cunning intelligence and pride confidence. I remember hearing a young student of theirs say, "If men believe I am good, then I am good." I asked him gently, "If a doctor convinces his patients that poison is medicine, does that make it so?" He laughed, uncertain whether to take offense or think. For the Sophists had trained their minds to dance around truth, never through it. Their ethics were woven from appearance. They believed the strong and clever were destined to rule, not because they were wise but because they could win. They taught that justice was whatever the powerful declared it to be, and that morality was a matter of circumstance. To them, conscience was a weakness and humility a flaw. But I could not accept this, for I have seen that the soul cannot lie to itself without fracture. A man may deceive the world for a time, but his own spirit remembers. And when night falls and applause is gone, the hollow space within him echoes louder than any crowd. To me, virtue is not the art of seeming, but the practice of being. It does not shift with fortune or opinion. It stands quietly like a tree whose roots hold firm in unseen soil. The Sophists built their morality on air and called it freedom. But freedom without truth is not freedom, it is drifting. They said that right and wrong are matters of advantage, but I learned that advantage is often the enemy of peace. A man who gains the world and loses his harmony is like a musician who breaks his lyre for louder sound that he may be heard by many, but his song is dead. I once told them, "No man does wrong willingly." They laughed, thinking me naive, but I meant that if one truly knew the good, not as rumor or performance but as felt truth, he could not act against it, for knowledge of the good transforms the heart, not just the tongue. The Sophists sought applause, I sought understanding. They loved reputation, I loved inquiry, and in that difference lay an entire way of life. They believed the world was a stage that I believed it was a school, and soon their theater would crumble before the simplest question, what is good? I remember the first time I stood among them, the Sophists, in the heart of the Agora, beneath the marble colonnades of Athens. The air was alive with the hum of argument, men gathered like moths around torches of eloquence, each word rising and falling like music meant to impress more than to teach. That I was silent, unnoticed, an old man among youth and ambition. Protagoras stood that day, draped in fine robes, his voice smooth as flowing wine. That he spoke of success, of how a man could rise by mastering speech, by turning opinion like a potter turns clay. Around him, students listened with bright eyes, nodding, drinking every word as if it were wisdom itself. That he smiled often, the smile of one who knows he is admired. I asked him softly, "Tell me, Protagoras, do you teach virtue?" He replied, "Indeed I do." "And is virtue one thing or many?" I asked. "Many," he said quickly, "for courage, justice, temperance, each stands apart." Then, I said, "Can a man possess one and not the others? Can a thief be brave but not just?" He hesitated, the smile flickering like a candle in a breeze, and before he could answer, the crowd began to murmur. Another time, I listened to Gorgias, the master of persuasion. That he claimed that nothing exists, and if it did, no one could know it, and if one could know it, he could not communicate it. When he finished, applause echoed through the marble halls. That I waited until the sound faded, then asked, "Gorgias, if you truly believe that nothing can be known, how do you know this?" The laughter that followed was not mine. That it was the crowd's. Laughter born not of mockery, but of awakening. You see, I never sought to embarrass them. That I only asked them to meet their own words with reason. Yet in doing so, their words dissolved like morning mist, for cleverness has no defense against clarity. They mocked me, of course. They called me a corrupter of youth, a destroyer of tradition, a man who knew nothing. And I agreed with them on one point, that I indeed knew nothing. But I also knew that they believed they knew, and therein lay the difference. I charged no fee for my questions. That I took no students, only companions, and thought. That I owned no school, only the open streets. And while they spoke for applause, I spoke for the soul. Many of their pupils came to me, confused by the glitter of words that left them hungry. They said, "Socrates, the Sophists have given us tools to win arguments, but not to live well." And I would reply, "Then perhaps you have learned how to conquer others, but not yourself." I began to see that the Sophists were not my enemies, they were my teachers in disguise. They taught me what wisdom is not. They showed me that the greatest deception is not to mislead others, but to believe one's own falsehood. And so I walked the streets of Athens, asking questions, breaking illusions, one conversation at a time. I had no armor but honesty, no weapon but wonder. Yet even the proudest tongues trembled before a single question. "What do you mean?" That question, simple as breath, became the stone that cracked their marble towers. People often asked me why I did not lecture as the Sophists did, why I asked questions instead of giving answers. And I told them gently, because truth cannot be given, only discovered. That a man who receives an answer may remember it for a day. A man who finds it himself remembers it for life. The Sophists spoke to fill minds. That I questioned to empty them. For a mind already full of borrowed certainty has no room left for wisdom. My task was not to teach what to think, but to awaken the awareness of thinking itself. When I met a man who claimed knowledge, I would not confront him as an opponent. That I would become his mirror. That I would ask, "What is it that you know?" If he said, "I know what justice is," I would ask, "Then tell me, is justice the same for friend and foe, for strong and weak?" And in answering, he would soon discover that his certainty was a fog, shaped by words but empty of understanding. It was not cruelty that guided me, but care, for a man trapped in illusion suffers without knowing why. Questioning, I held up the lantern of reason to the walls of his own mind, so he might see the shadows dancing there. Many mistook my method for argument, but it was not that I had no desire to defeat anyone, that I only wished to help them see that confusion is the beginning of wisdom, not its end. A child must first stumble before it learns to walk, so too must the intellect falter before it learns to see. The Sophists feared this stumbling. They built fortresses of eloquence to defend themselves from doubt. But every question I asked was like water against stone, patient, quiet, unrelenting, and soon their fortress began to wear thin. Some would grow angry, they would shout, "Socrates, you twist words." But I did not twist them, that I only turned them toward the light, that if a belief cannot survive its own examination, it was never truth, only comfort wearing a crown. There is a strange silence that follows a question well asked, that it is not the silence of defeat, but of awakening, that I have seen men tremble when the ground beneath their opinions gives way, and then moments later, I have seen them smile, as if breathing freely for the first time. That smile, quiet, humble, genuine, is the birth of wisdom. My questioning had no script. Each soul required a different door to open. To some I asked of courage, to others of justice, to many of love, and when they reached the edge of what they thought they knew, I stood beside them, not above them, and whispered, "Now look again." The Sophists sold words to be remembered, that I offered silence to be understood. They gave answers that glittered. I gave questions that endured. And though they had many followers, I found something they could not buy: the quiet joy of watching another's mind awaken to itself. That, to me, was philosophy, not the possession of truth, but the companionship of seeking. There came a time when the masks began to crack. The Sophists, so proud in their certainty, found themselves tangled in their own words. They could dazzle the crowds, yes, but not the truth. And when truth appeared, even faintly, their glitter lost its shine. I remember standing beneath the olive trees in the agora, surrounded by onlookers. One of the Sophists, bright, confident, beloved, had declared that virtue could be taught like music or mathematics. The crowd nodded, pleased by the idea that goodness could be purchased like skill. So I asked softly, if virtue can be taught, then who teaches it? And if all teachers are virtuous, who taught them? He answered quickly, as they all did, but each reply unraveled the one before it. The more he spoke, the more he revealed that he did not know. It was not I who exposed him. It was his own logic shining upon itself, a snake biting its tail. The people watched in silence, not out of cruelty, but out of realization. For the first time, they saw how the appearance of wisdom collapses when met with honest inquiry. And so it happened again and again, in public squares, in shaded porches, in crowded assemblies, their eloquence wilted before the simple question. Some turned angry, they accused me of mockery, of twisting their words. But I told them, you fear the mirror, not the reflection. You see, false wisdom thrives only in noise. When forced into silence, it suffocates. And so, as I asked and they answered, and silence grew between us, that silence became their undoing. For in it, their own words echoed back to them, hollow and uncertain. Many among the youth began to listen differently. They no longer sought teachers who flattered them, but companions who questioned them. They began to see that truth does not shine in argument, but glows quietly in understanding. The Sophists had built their temples upon applause. But applause is a tide. It comes, it goes, and it leaves only sand. When I asked them what remained when the crowd was gone, they had no answer, for they had never spoken to themselves, only to others. It was not that I defeated them. I could defeat no one, for I fought no one. It was that their words defeated themselves. Their glitter faded under the gentle weight of reason. And the people who once saw them as masters began to see through them as through smoke. In the stillness that followed, I felt no pride, only a quiet sadness and a deeper resolve. For I saw that Athens was not sick because of the Sophists. The Sophists were born from Athens' sickness. The city had begun to love opinion more than wisdom, and appearance more than truth. They were not the disease, only its symptom. Yet I also saw hope, because even as illusion crumbled, a new kind of silence began to bloom. The silence of listening, of wondering, of humility returning. That silence, I thought, is where philosophy begins, when the last clever word falls away and the first real thought is heard. In Athens, victory was everything. To win an argument was to gain honor. To lose was to lose face. The Sophists understood this well. They turned debate into a sport, a stage where the clever triumphed and the thoughtful were forgotten. But I learned that victory and truth rarely walk the same path. Many men debated to win. I questioned to understand. They sharpened their words as weapons. I laid mine down as offerings. They sought to conquer others. I sought to conquer myself. And in that difference lay the quiet revolution that undid them. Once, a young man approached me after hearing a long debate between a sophist and myself. He said, "Socrates, you have defeated him completely." I smiled and replied, "If either of us has been defeated, it is because neither yet knows what is true." He looked puzzled, for he had been taught to see conversation as war, not as journey. You see, when a man argues to win, he closes his mind even as he opens his mouth. He becomes deaf to truth, for every sound he hears is only measured against his own pride. But truth is not born from the desire to prevail. It is born from the willingness to listen. The Sophists mistook the applause of the crowd for the approval of wisdom. Yet truth needs no audience. It is content to sit quietly, even when no one notices. To seek victory is to strengthen the self. To seek truth is to dissolve it. That is why so few find wisdom, because it requires the humility to let one's opinions die. I have often said, "I know that I know nothing." And though they mocked me for it, I meant it as liberation. For the man who knows nothing has nothing to defend, and thus, everything to learn. The Sophists believed that winning proved knowledge. But I learned that losing can be its beginning. When a man is shown his error, and he accepts it with gratitude, he becomes freer than the man who hides his ignorance behind rhetoric. For to lose an illusion is to gain reality. Victory feeds the ego. Truth feeds the soul. One lasts a day, the other a lifetime. And the more Athens sought victory, the more restless it became. Its minds bright but shallow, its hearts loud but hollow. I began to notice something. When I spoke of truth, few stayed. But when I asked questions that led others to see for themselves, they lingered, quietly, thoughtfully, because the taste of truth cannot be served. It must be discovered within. In the end, the Sophists were celebrated in their time, but forgotten by it. Their victories faded with the cheers that crowned them. But truth, humble, patient, and unseen, endured beyond their fame. And so I learned that to love truth is to give up the desire to appear right. It is to walk barefoot where others march in armor. It is to lose many arguments in the eyes of men, and yet win the only one that matters, the one within your own soul. There is within every man a mirror, though few have the courage to look into it. It does not reflect the face, but the soul, not what we appear to be, but what we are when no one watches. The Sophists polished the surface of their words, but they never cleaned that inner mirror. And so, when they finally looked within, they saw only the dust of their own pride. I came to understand that philosophy begins not with learning, but with seeing. To know oneself. This is the first and hardest wisdom. For the eyes can look outward with ease, but to turn them inward is to face a stranger who has lived within you all along. When I asked the Sophists, "What is justice? What is good?" they reached outward, to laws, to customs, to victories. But when I asked, "And what of yourself? Do you live what you speak?" their gaze faltered. For it is easier to persuade others than to be honest with oneself. A man may learn every argument in the world, but if he does not know the shape of his own heart, his knowledge is noise. That he may win every debate, yet lose the quiet respect of his own conscience. And there is no audience loud enough to drown that silence. To cleanse the mirror of the soul, one must practice gentleness, not toward others first, but toward one's own confusion. We are all born into ignorance. The Sophists tried to escape theirs by pretending they had none. I learned to face mine and befriend it. For ignorance admitted is ignorance already half destroyed. Many came to me and asked, "Socrates, how can I find wisdom?" And I would say, begin by listening to the small voice that corrects you when you lie to yourself. That voice is the guardian of the soul. It grows quiet when ignored, but never dies. And the one who learns to follow it walks in harmony, even when the world is in conflict. The Sophists, however, silenced that voice. They spoke of virtue, yet they bartered with it. They taught excellence, yet lived for applause. Their mirrors shone on the outside but turned dark within. And when the time came for truth to visit them, they found no reflection left, only shadow. I often stood by the fountain in the square, watching the water ripple as people passed. I thought, the mind is like this pool. When agitated by vanity and noise, it distorts all that it reflects. But when it is still, it shows the heavens clearly. So too, the soul. Only in calmness can it reveal what is divine. Each question I asked others, I first asked myself. For how could I guide another if I had not first walked the road? I found within that mirror both humility and freedom. Humility, for I saw how little I knew. Freedom, for I no longer feared it. The Sophists saw knowledge as a crown. I saw it as a candle. And when I held that candle to my soul, I discovered something timeless, that the pursuit of truth is not about defeating others, but about learning to see oneself clearly enough to live rightly. And so I taught, not by proclaiming, but by reflecting, not by filling, but by emptying. For when the mirror of the soul is clear, even silence speaks. For many years, people wondered why I called myself ignorant. They said, "Socrates, you have refuted the proudest minds in Athens, and yet you say you know nothing." And I answered, "Perhaps that is why I see more clearly than they do, because I have stopped pretending." Ignorance is not the absence of knowledge. It is the refusal to see one's limits. The Sophists claim to know everything, what justice is, what beauty means, what truth demands, but their knowledge was like painted fruit, perfect in appearance, empty in nourishment. They mistook memory for wisdom and argument for understanding. I, on the other hand, saw knowledge as something sacred and endless, a horizon that retreats as you approach. Every answer opens another question, and the wise man smiles at this, while the fool grows angry, for the fool wants to arrive. The wise are content to journey. When I was younger, the oracle at Delphi said, "No man is wiser than Socrates." It puzzled me deeply that I went to those who were called wise, poets, politicians, artisans, to find one wiser than I. But when I questioned them, I found that though they possessed skill and talent, they also possessed illusion. They thought they knew what they did not. And so I learned that my wisdom lay not in knowledge, but in awareness of ignorance. That realization brought a strange peace. To know that I know nothing is not despair. It is freedom. For when a man accepts that he does not know, he becomes open, curious, alive. His mind becomes a garden again, ready for new growth. The Sophists closed their gardens with walls of pride. They feared uncertainty as if it were failure. But uncertainty is the womb of discovery. The wind of doubt clears the air of false belief. I have met men who could recite every teaching of the ancients, yet could not bear a single question about themselves. They held knowledge like armor, not like light. They used it to defend, not to see. And so their ignorance grew heavier the more they learned. I tell my companions, when you find yourself certain, stop and breathe, ask gently, what do I truly know of this? For certainty is a beautiful mask that ignorance loves to wear. Peel it away and the soul will begin to see. To know is not to possess. It is to participate. The mind and truth dance together, one guiding, one yielding, neither claiming victory. The Sophists wished to hold truth captive. I wished only to walk beside it. That is why they feared me, because I reminded them that knowledge cannot be owned, only served. And so I wandered the city, asking, listening, doubting. Many called me foolish, but I saw that every man I met knew something I did not, and in that each became my teacher. Ignorance, once embraced, transforms into gratitude. The more I learned, the less I knew. Yet in that shrinking of certainty, my world expanded, for I began to sense that knowledge is not a tower built by pride, but a well dug by humility, and the deeper one digs, the clearer the water becomes. There is a quiet wisdom in simplicity, a truth too humble for proud minds to see. The Sophists dressed their thoughts in ornaments, as if beauty of speech could make falsehood true. They filled their language with grandeur, like men lighting torches at midday. But truth, I found, needs no decoration. It shines best in its plainest form. I lived simply, not by choice of poverty, but by love of clarity. A full cup cannot reflect the sky, only an empty one can. And so I emptied my life of what was unnecessary, that my mind might stay clear enough to see. While others built schools and gathered fees, I walked barefoot through the marketplace, speaking with anyone who would listen. Rich or poor, slave or free, I owned nothing but questions, and yet I was never in want. Simplicity frees the soul from confusion. When a man owns too much, he begins to serve what he owns. When he learns too much without reflection, he becomes a servant of his own words. The Sophists were weighed down by both, possessions and pride. Their wealth came from teaching men how to appear great, but not how to be good. And so they were prisoners in gilded cages, envied by all, yet free in nothing. I discovered that the simpler my life became, the deeper my thoughts grew. The absence of noise is not emptiness. It is space for truth to enter. I could sit for hours in silence, watching the play of light on stone, and from that stillness new understanding would rise, soft, effortless, whole. The mind does not need constant movement to grow. It needs stillness to see. Once, a young Athenian, proud in his fine robe, asked me, "Socrates, why do you not live as a man of your wisdom should, with honor, comfort, and servants?" I smiled and said, "Because I wish to possess nothing that demands I lie to keep it." He frowned, unable to understand that freedom is not in abundance, but in detachment. The Sophists measured success by what glittered, that I measured it by what endured in silence. They spoke loudly so that others might remember them. I spoke quietly so that others might remember themselves. The greatest truths I ever found were small enough to fit in a whisper: that goodness needs no reward, that peace grows from honesty, that love of truth is richer than gold. When I stripped away everything that was not essential, I found what could not be taken: a mind unafraid to question, a soul unshaken by praise or blame. And in this, I learned something beautiful. Simplicity is not the denial of life's richness. It is its refinement. That it is to drink deeply from a clear stream, while others chase the foam. That it is to stand in sunlight without needing to own it. That it is to speak plainly, knowing that truth itself is music enough. The Sophists sought to fill the world with their voices. That I sought to leave space for silence. For only in silence does wisdom rest, waiting like calm water beneath the noise of rushing streams. And so I tell you, live simply, think deeply, and you will find that what remains after the world's illusions fall away is more than enough. In time, the fever of eloquence began to cool. The young men of Athens, those who once rushed to the Sophists for words of power, began to feel an emptiness they could not name. Their minds were full, yet their hearts were restless. Victory in debate no longer satisfied them, for though they had learned to persuade others, they had not learned to understand themselves. I did not summon them. They found me. They followed me through the narrow streets, through the marketplace, by the steps of temples, not to hear speeches, but to be questioned. They came not seeking certainty, but seeking peace. And though they could not say it then, what they truly longed for was something the Sophists could never sell: the stillness of being honest with one's own soul. I began to see a quiet awakening spread among them. That at first, it was confusion. Their minds, trained to argue, stumbled when asked to reflect. But slowly the light of doubt became the dawn of clarity. They began to see that wisdom is not in having the right answer, but in living the right way. I watched their eyes change. Where once there was hunger for victory, there grew a gentleness, a desire to listen, to think, to care. They no longer sought to win in words, but to live in truth. And Athens itself began to feel different, as if the very air had grown more thoughtful. Of course, not everyone rejoiced. Those who profited from falsehood felt threatened. The Sophists lost their students, and with them their applause. They whispered that I corrupted the youth, that I turned them away from tradition, from ambition, from the gods of the city. But I had only turned them inward. For I told them, the soul that knows itself will know how to live. No law, no teacher, no victory can replace that knowledge. And those who understood this began to live differently, humbler, kinder, freer. They questioned not only others but themselves. And that questioning, once feared, became a form of reverence, a prayer of the mind. I did not seek to make followers. Each mind that awakened was its own flame. And a single flame can light 100 others without diminishing its glow. Soon, the city was dotted with such lights. Small gatherings, quiet conversations, moments of honesty beneath the stars. Athens began to hum not with pride, but with reflection. The Sophists faded, not because I defeated them, but because truth no longer needed to argue. That it had begun to speak through the hearts of those who listened. And I, standing among them, felt a deep calm, for I saw that wisdom, once ignited, cannot be silenced, that it moves quietly from soul to soul, until even those who resist it begin to feel its warmth. So the city awoke, not in triumph but in understanding. And that, I thought, is how true revolutions begin, not with shouts in the streets, but with a single honest thought in the stillness of one's own mind. In time, the very peace that truth brought to some began to disturb others. For truth has this strange nature. It comforts the sincere, yet unsettles the deceiver. Those who had long lived by illusion felt their foundations shake, not because I sought to destroy them, but because I asked what they feared to ask themselves. The Sophists, once honored as masters of thought, now found their halls empty. Their disciples had turned to questioning instead of performing, to reflection instead of boasting. And so they looked upon me with quiet hostility. They said I made young men doubt their elders, that I undermined faith, that I mocked the city's gods. But I had done none of these things, that I had only invited minds to awaken, and the awakened cannot be ruled as easily as the sleeping. It is a delicate thing to speak truth among those who love illusion. They hear the words as insult, not as invitation. The more gently you speak, the more violently they resist. And so it was with Athens. The city that once listened with curiosity began to whisper in suspicion. Where I had once walked freely through the marketplace, I now walked among glances of doubt. Friends warned me, they said, "Socrates, be silent. Let them have their comfort." But how could I? To be silent while falsehood thrives is to share its guilt. And so I continued as I always had, asking, listening, questioning, for I would rather suffer for truth than prosper in ignorance. Then one day they called me to answer before the city. The charge was corruption, the corruption of youth, the questioning of gods. The very things I had done to purify the soul, they claimed had poisoned it. That I stood there in the court, surrounded by faces both kind and cold, and I felt no anger, only sorrow that they mistook my medicine for poison. I spoke plainly, without defense or flattery, that I told them that I was the city's gadfly, a small creature that stirs a great horse to keep it awake. That I said that if they silenced me, they would silence not a man, but the voice that calls them to remember themselves. Some listened with tears, others with scorn, and when they pronounced my fate, I accepted it without bitterness. For truth, I learned, demands not only thought, but sacrifice. The price of clarity is often misunderstanding. The price of integrity is loneliness. Yet what joy could be greater than living and dying without deceit? I drank the cup of hemlock calmly, not as punishment, but as completion. That I felt the body grow heavy, the breath slow, the sound of the world dim. But within there was peace, the kind that cannot be taught, only lived, for I had served the truth as best I could, and that service is its own immortality. And even as my eyes closed, I knew truth would not die with me, for once a single soul awakens, it cannot unlearn what it has seen, and every man or woman who dares to question will hear, faintly, the echo of my voice. Think for yourself. Seek what is good. Fear nothing but falsehood. Thus, even in death I was free, and in freedom I found the deepest silence. The silence that is not the end of speech but the beginning of understanding. People often asked me why I did not lecture as the Sophists did, why I asked questions instead of giving answers. And I told them gently, because truth cannot be given, only discovered. That a man who receives an answer may remember it for a day. A man who finds it himself remembers it for life. The Sophists spoke to fill minds that I questioned, to empty them. For a mind already full of borrowed certainty has no room left for wisdom. My task was not to teach what to think, but to awaken the awareness of thinking itself. When I met a man who claimed knowledge, I would not confront him as an opponent. I would become his mirror. I would ask, "What is it that you know?" If he said, "I know what justice is," I would ask, "Then tell me, is justice the same for friend and foe, for strong and weak?" And in answering, he would soon discover that his certainty was a fog, shaped by words but empty of understanding. It was not cruelty that guided me, but care, for a man trapped in illusion suffers without knowing. Why questioning, I held up the lantern of reason to the walls of his own mind, so he might see the shadows dancing there. Many mistook my method for argument, but it was not that I had no desire to defeat anyone. I only wished to help them see that confusion is the beginning of wisdom, not its end. A child must first stumble before it learns to walk. So too must the intellect falter before it learns to see. The Sophists feared this stumbling. They built fortresses of eloquence to defend themselves from doubt. But every question I asked was like water against stone, patient, quiet, unrelenting, and soon their fortress began to wear thin. Some would grow angry. They would shout, "Socrates, you twist words." But I did not twist them. I only turned them toward the light. If a belief cannot survive its own examination, it was never truth, only comfort wearing a crown. There is a strange silence that follows a question well asked. It is not the silence of defeat, but of awakening. I have seen men tremble when the ground beneath their opinions gives way, and then moments later, I have seen them smile, as if breathing freely for the first time. That smile, quiet, humble, genuine, is the birth of wisdom. My questioning had no script. Each soul required a different door to open. To some, I asked of courage, to others of justice, to many of love, and when they reached the edge of what they thought they knew, I stood beside them, not above them, and whispered, "Now look again." The Sophists sold words to be remembered. I offered silence to be understood. They gave answers that glittered. I gave questions that endured. And though they had many followers, I found something they could not buy: the quiet joy of watching another's mind awaken to itself. That, to me, was philosophy, not the possession of truth but the companionship of seeking. There came a time when the masks began to crack. The Sophists, so proud in their certainty, found themselves tangled in their own words. They could dazzle the crowds, yes, but not the truth. And when truth appeared, even faintly, their glitter lost its shine. I remember standing beneath the olive trees in the agora, surrounded by onlookers. One of the Sophists, bright, confident, beloved, had declared that virtue could be taught like music or mathematics. The crowd nodded, pleased by the idea that goodness could be purchased like skill. So I asked softly, "If virtue can be taught, then who teaches it? And if all teachers are virtuous, who taught them?" He answered quickly, as they all did, but each reply unraveled the one before it. The more he spoke, the more he revealed that he did not know. It was not I who exposed him. It was his own logic shining upon itself. A snake biting its tail. The people watched in silence, not out of cruelty but out of realization. For the first time, they saw how the appearance of wisdom collapses when met with honest inquiry. And so it happened again and again. In public squares, in shaded porches, in crowded assemblies, their eloquence wilted before the simple question. Some turned angry. They accused me of mockery, of twisting their words. But I told them, "You fear the mirror, not the reflection. You see, false wisdom thrives only in noise. When forced into silence, it suffocates. And so, as I asked and they answered and silence grew between us, that silence became their undoing. For in it, their own words echoed back to them, hollow and uncertain. Many among the youth began to listen differently. They no longer sought teachers who flattered them, but companions who questioned them. They began to see that truth does not shine in argument, but glows quietly in understanding. The Sophists had built their temples upon applause. But applause is a tide. It comes, it goes, and it leaves only sand. When I asked them what remained when the crowd was gone, they had no answer, for they had never spoken to themselves, only to others. It was not that I defeated them. I could defeat no one, for I fought no one. It was that their words defeated themselves. Their glitter faded under the gentle weight of reason, and the people who once saw them as masters began to see through them as through smoke. In the stillness that followed, I felt no pride, only a quiet sadness and a deeper resolve. For I saw that Athens was not sick because of the Sophists. The Sophists were born from Athens' sickness. The city had begun to love opinion more than wisdom, and appearance more than truth. They were not the disease, only its symptom. Yet I also saw hope, because even as illusion crumbled, a new kind of silence began to bloom. The silence of listening, of wondering, of humility returning. That silence, I thought, is where philosophy begins, when the last clever word falls away and the first real thought is heard. Now, as I speak to you from the stillness beyond time, I see it all more clearly than ever. The Sophists are gone. Their words, once loud as thunder, have faded into dust. Their names live in books, but not in hearts. And yet truth, soft and unarmed, still walks quietly through the minds of those who listen. This is the strange triumph of wisdom. It does not conquer. It endures. That it needs no temples, no gold, no followers. That it lives in the honest thought of a single person. In the moment one dares to ask, what is right? That question, simple, pure, sincere, is greater than all the speeches of all the Sophists combined. When I wandered through Athens, I often thought the city itself was a mirror, shining with pride, yet fragile with vanity, and I knew that one day it would crack. But from those cracks, light would enter, for the soul of man cannot remain forever asleep beneath the weight of applause and illusion. To this day, I do not see my life as a victory. That I see it as a lesson. The Sophists taught the power of words. I taught the strength of silence. They sought to impress the crowd. I sought to awaken the conscience. They measured worth in gold. I measured it in peace. And though they were celebrated and I condemned, the truth remained, gentle, patient, unbroken. I have learned that the world often mistakes noise for meaning. But wisdom is not loud. That it is the calm that follows after all arguments have burned themselves out. That it is the soft voice inside that whispers, be honest, be kind, be still. To every listener who still hears me, remember this. You need no teacher greater than your own sincerity. The questions you carry are sacred. Do not fear them. Let them lead you through the fog of appearances until you find that quiet space where the mind rests in clarity. Do not strive to be clever, for cleverness fades. Do not chase admiration, for it dies with the moment. Seek only to understand, and in understanding to live rightly, for a single act born of truth is worth more than 1,000 words born of pride. So now, as this night draws to a close, let the mind grow still, let the noise of the world drift away, like dust settling in sunlight. Remember that wisdom is not hidden far from you. It waits in the gentle awareness of your own being. Listen deeply as I once did beneath the open sky of Athens, and you will hear it, the quiet hum of truth that never dies. Rest now, dear listener, for in listening you have already begun to awaken, and in awakening you have already won the only victory that matters, the triumph of the soul over illusion. Sleep peacefully knowing this, that truth once seen cannot be destroyed, and that every honest question softly asked is the beginning of eternity.